What's up, guys? So, X-Men Apocalypse has opened up here in Australia, and I got a chance to go see it yesterday. So this is going to be my review of the movie. Overall, it was okay. It was just one of those movies where I was just sitting there and I was like, there was lots of stuff happening, like buildings blowing up and X-Men running around and, everything. And I was just like, yeah, and it's not a bad movie, but there were definitely parts in it that I didn't like, but there were some parts that I did like. But before I get to that, we'll just talk a little bit about the story. The story saw the rise of the first mutant, quote unquote, apocalypse, and the movie actually opens with a really cool scene of like him back in ancient Egypt and like how he sort of adapts his powers and everything, and like when he gets old, he goes to a new body, and this new body he goes to, the last new body before he gets sealed in a tomb by all these traitors, is Oscar Isaac's body. And Oscar Isaac, he didn't actually have any lines as this, I guess, a slave or like a willing participant in this. His powers are, he has like a healing ability, and I guess makes Apocalypse immortal, more like of the word. But yeah, he gets sealed away, and he doesn't come back until a little later on in the movie, where Moira McTaggart is sort of looking for this cult that sort of worships him, and she inadvertently raises him from the dead. Really kind of cool scene. I don't understand. I'm sure someone will correct me because I'm not really a big X-Men fan. Like, I'm not too familiar with all the characters and everything. But with Apocalypse, he had like this thing on top of his pyramid that when sun hits it, it like causes like this like circuitry light sort of thing to like come and like pick him up on the altar, and that's like what gives him his powers. Like that's what it seemed to me. Like it seemed really weird, and that was never actually explained in the movie. So I don't particularly know what that is. I'm sure someone will tell me what it is. But in present day, or 1983, Professor Xavier has set up his school. It's running, and we're sort of introduced to that when Scott Summers starts to develop his powers, and his brother Havoc takes him there and sort of shows him around. And we're introduced to, Hank McCoy again, Charles Xavier. We get a little bit of Jubilee. She's hardly ever in the movie. She's in it for probably 30 seconds, all of which in that short time she probably has a couple of lines, and that's about saying Empire Strikes Back is better than Return of the Jedi. So got to commend her for that. And we also meet Jean Grey. And yeah, she's pretty cool in this movie, sort of just finding out what her powers are like and everything. And she, even within the school, she's seen as kind of a freak because of her powers. Like she can read people's minds and everything, and I guess that's sort of seen as like an invasion of privacy, and it really is. Like I wouldn't want someone going through my mind or anything without them saying something about it. But yeah, other than that, an alright movie. We got the scenes I really liked in this movie were everything involving Magneto, everything involving Magneto before he becomes a Horseman of the Apocalypse. Because he's like sort of settled down. Like he was on the run after all the stuff that happened in Days of Futures Past, and he's on the run, and I think he's living in Poland, and he's changed his name. He's working in a steel mill. He actually has a wife and child. The child actually has abilities as well, and I'm sure like she's from the comics as well. Again, I'm not too familiar with all the X-Men and everything, and she can control animals, I think, or like birds and animals. And people actually find out about him when he saves a guy at his metalworks. He saves him from this big vat falling on him that's again linked to Apocalypse. Like when Apocalypse wakes up, this big earthquake happens like all around the world, and that's what causes the vat to fall, and he saves the guy from the vat, and people see him and they send like vigilante police officers to his place, and they accidentally kill his wife and child, so he sort of goes vengeful and sort of kills all the cops, and he goes to kill all the men in the metalworks, but then Apocalypse comes and gives him his powers and everything. But yeah, other than that, it's really a Mystique movie. She's sort of like the main focus of this movie, much like how she was in Days of Futures Past. She's becomes the leader of the X-Men. It's like really weird because before like she actually does that, she was sort of away from the Xavier estate, and she was running around Europe, and she's sort of like a coyote, like taking them across the border, taking these mutants across the border and giving them new identities and everything. And that's how she meets like Nightcrawler and like Angel and everything. Angel in this movie is criminally wasted. He dies near the end of the movie, and other than that, all he's there for is just so we can get this scene of like a guy with big spread wings and everything. Literally hardly does anything in the movie, really. Same with Psylocke, she's hardly in the movie, and when she is, she's just like cutting stuff up with her sword, and she has probably 3 or 4 lines maybe. She survives and then just like walks off at the end. Yeah, the whole movie sort of centers around Apocalypse wanting to sort of cleanse the earth after finding out like the humans have become sort of like the primary species, so he quickly gets rid of all the nuclear weapons in the earth. He does that by like controlling people through Charles Xavier. He can tap into Charles's mind and everything. And the thing though with this movie is it has, I guess, a continuity break. I'm not too sure. So before I saw this movie, I watched Days of Futures Past just to remind me like where everyone is. And at the end of that movie, it's implied that when Wolverine is found in the Potomac in Washington D.C., Mystique, who is Colonel Stryker, there, because like the movie cuts out as you see like her eyes sort of like glow like how Mystique's eyes do whenever you see her change and everything. So you think it's like, oh, Mystique's going to help him get away, you know, and everything. But it's not, because apparently in this movie takes place, I think, 10 years after that. Colonel Stryker appears in this after the house blows up, after Xavier's mansion blows up. That was a really cool scene, though. Again, that was another one of those Quicksilver scenes. Is the only reason he's actually in the movie is because of this really cool scene with the Eurythmics song Sweet Dreams over it, where he saves all the students from the exploding mansion. It was really well done as well. I really liked it, and there were some scenes though in there that looked really weird, like when he'd like go from like the ground to a wall to the roof to the next wall and then back down to the ground. It looked really weird, like the way he was moving. But other than that, it was a really cool scene. But yeah, Stryker just turns up and like captures all the students and takes them to that dam that we saw in X-Men 2. And this is just normal Stryker. And at that dam, once we get to the dam, it's literally like, oh, here's the Wolverine cameo. Wolverine shows up again, Hugh Jackman shows up, and he's wearing sort of a similar Weapon X thing. The only thing is that people know the Weapon X stuff, like how he has like the helmet on and like small like sensors and stuff all over his body. In this, he has the helmet on, but and I think this is because it's Hugh Jackman playing it and it needs to show his face. It doesn't have a visor. It like has a big open gap where you can actually see his whole face. It's really weird, like. And obviously that was because, oh, we need to show these people that this is Hugh Jackman and everything, you know. They could have just done this with a stuntman, you know, and then have Hugh Jackman come in at the end when Jean sort of touches his mind and, I guess, resets it back to Logan, since he was Wolverine and just, like, killing everyone in the place. But yeah, then he leaves the movie and then that's it. We never see him again. And yeah, the end fight is, I don't want to say lackluster, but I was sitting there watching it and I was like, I don't really care, you know? I don't really care. And like, the fights you see in, like, the trailers and everything, like, all that destruction and everything, that's not actually caused by Apocalypse. That's caused by Magneto, who's using his full power to sort of, like, warp the Earth's polarity and, like, pull all the metal out of the Earth and sort of destroy it and everything. That's all his doing. And again, like, I don't know how they're going to recover from this, because, like, we see scenes after this and scenes during this battle where, like, all over the world, like, buildings are being ripped apart and like massive like shipping containers are being thrown across the earth, and like sunken wrecks of, I think it was like the Titanic or something, or like old sunken wrecks being dragged out of the ocean, and we see a shot of New York, and New York is absolutely fucked. Like all the buildings are destroyed and everything. I'm like, how are they going to rebuild after this? Like, what the hell? It's really crazy. Like the amount of destruction of this, like it'd make Zack Snyder envious. I'm telling you, it'd make him envious. But yeah, then they defeat him because Jean uses her psychic abilities to call on the Dark Phoenix, or Phoenix, and Phoenix shows up and like obliterates Apocalypse, and that's the end. They get their costumes at the end that we've seen that picture from. They're probably in those costumes for about 20 seconds, and then the movie ends. And yeah, it was just kind of and yeah, it's not a good movie, it's not a bad movie. It's just one of those movies that are just there, and I think that's kind of like all Fox movies. They're just there. It's really weird to explain. But yeah, it's definitely a lot better than Days of Futures Past. But other than that Stryker thing, like I don't understand how that Stryker has Wolverine when the Stryker at the end of Days of Futures Past was Mystique, and it doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. Go see it, I guess. You know, if you're a fan of X-Men, just go see it. If you're a fan of Marvel movies, go see it. I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10.